Hello everyone, Karen the Warp Spinster here. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for spending time with me today. Yesterday, I decided that I would tackle my scrap bin that I keep under the table here. I guess I'm sort of like Julia Child. I just shove things under the table. But it was overflowing and was really a mess, so I decided it was time to tackle that. And I'll show you just a couple of pictures. I think I've probably showed it to you in person before, live before. Anyway, so I went through and did some cutting that I thought would be appropriate for upcoming project ideas. And I spent the day doing that actually. And this is what the tin looks like now. These are all of the, that doesn't belong in there, the pastel light colored scraps, and then various grays underneath there. And then I found this that I had started. You may remember way back when I decided I was going to start a stitch dictionary. And this is what a zigzag stitch looks like at 1-1 zigzag. So I think that's it's pretty neat actually. It does pretty well. So I may do more on that stitch dictionary. Anyway, so that's what it currently looks like. But I also have some other pieces. In the process, I was cutting some, let's start with this, I guess. I was cutting some squares and rectangles for what we're going to do today. And got a pretty hefty pile of those, 2 piles of those. And then from what was left, if I could, I did some half square triangle pieces. And then occasionally I did some 1.5 inch squares for that project, which is another thing I've been trying to, yikes, clean out a bit. And then I also, when I had red and pink and white things, then I did pieces for the Alice quilt. And then I had lots of white and black and white and stripy kind of things, which some of which we'll for sure use today. Others maybe, not sure about that entirely. So I have gotten started on the half square triangle things, and I am not necessarily making them into squares. I just took what white triangles I had, put them with whatever size of the brights that I had, and you can see that this is not going to be square, and I'm okay with that. I can square it up if I need to, but I could have it a little wonky if I want to as well. So that's what got us here, and now what I want to do today is, this time I want to be able to just sit down and sew, crank some things out, and see where we end up. I'm still not sure about this color in there. It's not that I dislike the color, I'm just not sure it's going to fit with the rest of them. So what I want to do today is, maybe I'll start with a larger piece here, be easier for everyone to see. Let's start with this blue. This does happen to be a square. It's a leftover from another quilt. And I just want to do snowball blocks, but I want to do them wonky fashion. So just as I did with the geese, pineapple geese, I'm not going to worry about it being perfectly square against that corner, so it ends up with that perfect corner that we look for on a snowball block, on a traditional one. But I might just kind of put it at an odd angle. They won't all be the same size in the corners. So I think I'm going to get started with that, and then they may or may not end up being parallelograms, I guess. They may start out square and not end up that way, or I may cut some so they aren't quite square to begin with. And of course we have other possibilities, because we could decide that we want corners to be in a black and white stripe or another black and white print, or in solid black. So I just want to give a few a try and then see how they might look if they come together. So all I will do is cut some sort of triangle-y shapes and put them on the four corners, and then come back and we'll talk about what I want to do from there. And I think I will start with white. And I know some folks are not stark white fans for the background, and I respect that. But I'm going to start with white because it's very neutral, and I actually like white backgrounds, so sorry, folks. Oh, thank you for your comments on the various fan configurations. It was a lot of fun. When I put it on Instagram and Facebook, I probably should not have said that the one that I thought was Very Hungry Caterpillar with the scarf on in a convertible. I mentioned that to me originally it looked like, I think I called her Hilda, the robot maid on the Jetsons. She's actually Rosie. And so I put in, I think I listed 3 different things I thought it looked like, and everyone chose Rosie. I think everyone just loves Rosie. Anyway, thank you all for that. A couple of people had suggested a black background, which I think would be really cool, and I will, that's easy for me to do in Procreate, so I will do that and post that at the photo at the end so you can kind of see how that would look. Anyway, thank you for your comments and your ideas. I enjoy reading them. I haven't replied to all of you yet, but I will. All right. So off to put on these corners, and then I'll be back. This is not how your average snowball block would look in progress. So let's see how it looks once I press it. I think I'm going to press the seams open. So I'll trim them here, press them open, and then we'll see how it looks. If we were not trying to do a wonky piece, this would just be a hot mess, wouldn't it? But I think it's kind of interesting. We've got almost a square and a square going on over on this side because these almost meet or overlap, not quite. And then smaller, larger, so this could be kind of interesting. Now, I did press the seams open partly because I don't know where seams are going to come together when I start sewing them together, but also because since I'm using white, I don't want any of the shadow through, so that if I had just left it like this and folded it back, I would get shadow, some shadow from the brights. All right, so we have choices in how we're going to trim this. We can trim it to where it would be the original square, except that I don't really have enough to do that down here. So we may end up doing some wonky stuff here. Grab my rotary cutter, and just as I did with the geese, I'm going to be okay with cutting it sort of, not sort of, but quite crookedly. I want to save quite a bit of this down here because I don't have very much, and I'm going to end up losing a lot in the seams. Let me zoom out here a little bit so I don't go off screen. And then here, well, that wasn't even straight, Karen. That seams there, you're going to have to bear down on the ruler. There we go. And then this one will go this way. Now, do I know how I'm going to be putting these together? No. We'll find out. And then we can make this one fairly square. We'll just kind of follow the original seam. All right. Now this looks funky here, but remember that's going to be in a seam. So, all right, there is our funky wonky snowball block. Now I have all different sizes, which is partly determined by the size of the scrap that I had, but also partly because I wanted different sizes. So let's pull out a few colors here. And let's see. And I have some squares, some rectangles. The larger pieces I can always cut into smaller pieces if I want. And of course I could make a rule that everything starts as a square, but I don't want to use that rule. So I am going to do these all with, no, because this is a similar color. These I'm going to do with the white triangles in the corner. This one I'm going to try doing a black and white, which is probably going to be a stripe because that's mostly what I have in the scraps. So I really am using just scraps from that bin, and we'll see where it takes us. I shall be back with these all finished, or at least all these, and then we'll come back and talk about the stripe on those corners, I guess. All right, I didn't do all of them, just one, because I should be able to just run them all through and then do the folding back and trimming, but I just can't wait to see what they look like. So here's the next one. From here on out, I promise you, I will not make you, it's kind of like a fashion. I should do a little runway show for these blocks as I finish them. Do a little trim in here. A couple of these corners I had to redo because I made the seams so narrow that they would never to be seen again once they were seamed. This one's going to be a little tricky. Now truly, isn't this how snowballs actually look? They are not all perfectly round or perfectly uniform as they might have you believe from the snowball block, right? You all probably make better snowballs than I do. In fact, that's almost assuredly true. All right, so there's another one, and they are pretty funky. And of course we have options for how we put them together, so we're not worrying about that yet, but I always have to try things. Okay. Now I am going to go do these. And here we have a few of them. On the smaller pieces, I discovered that if I did all four corners, then this would end up getting lost in the seam anyway, so I left them. So they aren't technically snowball blocks, and of course they're more like, especially on the smaller ones, they're more like a square in a square configuration, but that's okay. That was just our starting premise, so we can do whatever we like from here. Now, all kinds of ways we can put these together, of course, but let's try. They kind of look like uncut gems, don't they? Sort of uneven, unfinished gems. So let's try with this piece using some black and white. And I have mostly stripes here as my options. I think this is probably going to get a little on the eyes, but let's see what happens. I might almost prefer the wider stripe. Or we could do, say, 2 corners in one stripe and 2 corners in another, or 2 corners in a stripe and 2 in solid black, and having these going different ways. Woo! That could be interesting. Or we could do 2 in a stripe and 2 in white, which if we wanted to combine it with these, might be a good option. So I think I'll start with that, and then we'll try a couple other options and see what we like. Start putting them up next to each other, even if we aren't figuring out just yet how to put them together, because to be honest with you, I'm thinking, what if we did some black stripes in between? I can't design something without at least looking at having a black and white stripe in there. I don't know. We aren't there yet, so. All right, so I'm doing 2 corners in the wide stripe and 2 in white. And here's the piece with the black and white, and I like it. What can I say? I like it. Now, if we put it with pieces that are just with white corners, then it adds a little something for sure. And then as we're putting it together, we can decide if we want to alternate them, if we want more, if we want just a few scattered, or if we want them to be like this at all. As I was doing this one, I thought about if we did it so that we made it to end up to be square corners as a regular snowball would be, but we have different size corners, then what would that look like? These are looking almost a little, can't believe I'm going to say this, a little too wonky. To have just that. Now, if we had other things in between, maybe it would be okay. Not sure that I'm not seeing how it was in my head, which is, of course, not at all unusual. So, I think I'm going to try doing this, and let's take a larger square kind of piece here. I know I have some. Let's try a yellow. Oops, that's not a larger one. All right, so here's a larger yellow piece. And we could almost, I'm thinking, what if we made them different sizes, but have the regular corners on them in different fabrics? Yikes. You know, I start out thinking that it's going to be just a very simple concept, and then there are too many choices. All right, so I'm going to do this one with black and white stripe in the corner, in 2 of the corners. And then do I want to try black in opposite corners? I do, and I'm going to try 2 different stripes to see how that looks, and then plain black in these 2 corners. And here is a black and white with black, and I kind of like it, but not as much as I like this. And 4 corners of the stripes would definitely be too much. And I think the same stripe on opposite corners. So you know the drill. Let me know in the comments what you think. The next thing I want to try is to take a couple squares of different sizes and colors, but still large enough to be able to do all 4 corners reasonably. Let's see if I've got a pink square-ish piece here. And do them both with black and white in 2 corners and white in others, but make them pretty regular so that it's more like a traditional snowball block. Maybe not so much like a traditional snowball block. Maybe a little closer than, so more like, say, these 2. More traditional than, say, this one, which is not necessarily a bad concept to understand. I just don't know if it's going to turn out as I want. Winston the German Shepherd is taking umbrage to a dog walking by. So if you hear growling, that's just Winston. I don't know. I know you are calling things to me. Yell louder. I can't hear you. Let's see how that's kind of interesting with the, I think I just need to make a bunch of blocks and then we'll see how it all goes. I'm tapping my fingers off camera. You could probably hear it. All right, thinking going on here, because when things do not come out the way I have them in my head, then I have to do extra hard thinking. So I am going to do these two with black and white, maybe not necessarily stripes. I have a couple other black and white prints here somewhere. Here's another one, those polka dots. I could do stripes and dots. As I was sewing this, I was thinking it's a black and white affair, which then got me onto, you know, a black tie event, and so there's a whole other thing. Maybe I will do dots and stripes. Not on the same block, but do some with dots and some with stripes. What do you think? Let me know. Of course, it will be after the fact because I'm going to do it anyway. But, okay, so we'll have stripes on one, dots on the other, white on two of the corners. What I have decided to do is I had been stitching all four corners on and then trimming, but I think what I want to do is stitch the corners and trim as I go. So I will have corners that are a little bit wonky, but not so wild that they aren't a snowball block anymore. And I'm going to see how that goes. So you can see this one is longer on one side than the other, but it's still going to end up in this square shape. All right, definitely better for what I was thinking about. Sorry to lead you through all of that to come to this conclusion, but that really is more of what I was thinking. And I haven't yet finished that one, so I will do that first. Just kind of checking what I think about the dots and stripes thing. I'm not finding my words very well today. Or they aren't getting from my brain out anyway. You absolutely could do this with a single color. This would be kind of a bumblebee sort of quilt, wouldn't it? Save the bees. It isn't quite a hexagon though. So definitely happier with this. It looks wonky, but it is in fact the original shape. So I'm not going to pitch these others that we've done for sure, but let me do this one in the stripes on opposite corners. And I think the same stripe, and then white on the other two corners. All right. This is more like what I was thinking. This one, because it's smaller, ends up being more of a square and a square thing, which will actually change once we have the seam going through there. But I'm liking that better. I think I even like the black and white corners. Tell me what you think. And do we want them all to be that way? I know this one is not the square configuration, but, oops, sorry. Somehow this new camera setup, I end up closer to myself than I think. And this one is, of course, with the black there, is not quite. That's just a little too much in your face, I think. And I'm always picturing in my mind a white background or a very subtle background. So this black is a little much, I think. Maybe I need to do another one that isn't yellow so that it doesn't look just like that one, but it really would be a bumblebee kind of quilt, wouldn't it? Cool. All right, so let me do another one of these with black corners, opposite corners instead of white, and I'll do it in a color other than yellow, and we'll see how that goes. And here it is with the black corners. I didn't trim the back triangle here in case I wanted to change it to white corners, and I think I do. There's just a brightness in the white that I'm looking for, and while I love black backgrounds with bright colors, I absolutely love it, I don't think it's what I'm looking for in this case. I know there are many of you who will lobby for that, but this quilt that I have in my head wants to have that brightness. So I'm going to swap these two out for white corners, and then we'll be back and see where we're at. Now we're getting there. These are more like what I was thinking, although I was thinking the same fabric on the corners. But I do like having the black and white popping against the bright. I'm wondering if I can find a sort of strip piece here. It's kind of a pathetic strip, but if we have, say, some intersecting black and white, sorry for the wobbly camera, and maybe I have white strips here somewhere, of course not. Let me pull out my strip bag, which is still pretty full, but at least I know they're all strips, or should be. Well, here's one with a full strip attached, but we could do alternating with black and white sections here, or we could just keep alternating the blocks. I would love to have some very small ones, but I don't know that that's going to work, because when they get that small, they're difficult to do the corners on. So let me see if I can find, maybe we could just do plain in between, small plain ones. Surely I have some small squares in here. If not, I will make some. And that's the same color as that. That won't tell us anything. All right, let me, here I go again. What is she doing now? All right, and then that's maybe not a bad idea, huh? Then I could still have stripes, maybe another small square going down. Yeah, not that small. Or a rectangle going down, something like that. and make it pretty scrappy, but the stars would be these pieces. I'm thinking that might be where my design brain is right now. I don't know if it will stay there, but let me know what you think. I know some of you are not going to be entirely happy with the white background, but that's where I'm at the moment. You might be able to convince me otherwise. It's possible. I try to have an open mind. Then we need a strip across here, don't we, of something. It could be just white. To get too much in there, then I lose that brightness in the background that I want. I am making such a mess out of this white stack. Be thankful you can't see it. All right, let's do this piece in there and pretend it's actually a white strip. Then it almost gets to be too chaotic somehow. I like having an occasional plain piece in there maybe, but I want the focus really to be on these blocks. I'm not even sure how I feel about the strips in there. Sounds like the wind is picked up out there. Not when I hear what I want to hear when I'm about to take a walk. I don't mind that so much. I really am not sure I want those stripes in there. Maybe along the edge. Say if this was an edge, that's almost like a border with that piece moving out into the border. Or even having this be the border be white. This is kind of an inner border, and it runs behind some of these and then goes. I'm getting way ahead of myself, aren't I? But this is how my brain is working. What do you think? Share your thoughts. I have many thoughts. Share yours with me, please, in the comments. I think this, I'm just going to have to ponder all of this for a while. I'm happy with this. These pieces I will still keep and perhaps use somewhere, but not these pieces, she says, if she pulls them off camera. I will possibly use them somewhere, but not for this particular project. I'm liking this better, and I'm just going to have to ponder more. That's all there is to it. So we will, all right, this is not really white, but I'll use the back side so we can see. This is actually the border and that stripe goes through it. Or it could be a plain black strip inner border. I said that was going to be it for today, didn't I? I have to clean up this black and white stack over here. Be thankful you can't see it. All right, that is it for today. Thank you for joining me. As always, please let me know what you think about the various possibilities in this, which you like, any suggestions you might have. I am remembering. I hope I will continue to remember that I will post at the end when I post a photo of this, also of how some of the fan blocks would look with the black background, because several of you noted that. So I would like to show that to you. It's very easy in Procreate. Thanks again for joining me. Please like this video. Love to hear your comments. If you aren't subscribed, I would love to have you join us. And I will see you next week when we will do who knows what. Maybe more of this. Maybe a report back on this. Who knows? Anyway, I hope I will see you then. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.